Hey folks, Joe Valley here with Quiet Light Brokerage and the Quiet Light Podcast. Today's guest is Scott Needham. Scott is the CEO of buyboxer.com. It's a company that's been selling on Amazon since 1999, if you can believe that, and FBA since 2009. They manage over 200 brands, and they believe in unique, efficient software tools, which is kind of nice. They actually produce their own and integrate some of the others that you all know about, and then they sharpen both of them to outperform the competition. Some of Scott's primary focuses are data acquisition, which is APIs, inventory management. Everyone has a problem with that, as you know, if you're growing like crazy on Amazon. And then Amazon refunds management, which is, where Amazon actually makes mistakes and most people don't know how to get their money back. At Buyboxer, they've got a team of 150 Amazon professionals out in Logan, Utah. And Scott hosts the Smartest Amazon Seller podcast, where he talks openly about how he sold over 300 million on Amazon. And as always, today's podcast is brought to you by Quiet Light Brokerage. I am a partner at Quiet Light, and I thought my number was impressive, where I was going to say, yes, I've sold close to 100 million in total transactions, but here Scott's done 300 million in revenue on Amazon. It's mind-blowing. Everybody at Quiet Light is an entrepreneur. We've all built, bought, sold our own online businesses, and now we act as advisors as well. Check out our listings at quietlightbrokerage.com and get a free valuation. If you are out there thinking about selling your business, don't wait until you're tired, exhausted, run down, and say, I just got to get rid of this. Plan it in advance so you'll be prepared and get maximum value for the business and hand a great business over to a great buyer at a great price and deal for both of you. Scott, welcome to the Quiet Light Podcast. Thank you for joining today.
Hey, Joe, thank you for having me.
I am impressed, man. That's 300 million in total revenues on Amazon. I don't think I've ever had a guest on that's done that.
Revenue and margin are different things. I am embarrassed, like the volume that we've done, and like sometimes the year end, I'm like this is all we profited. Amazon is, everyone knows the volume is there. And, but I've really focused the last 18 months on just being creative in not hurting sales, but growing gross margin.
Yeah. Yeah. I often hear revenue is, what is it? Revenue is sanity, profits are vanity. No, the opposite, right? Revenue is vanity, profits are sanity. And the value of the business is not based on revenue. It's based on that bottom line. Now, your business and your gross margin that you're talking about is different than what somebody else might be looking at, because you don't own all of the brands yourself that you operate. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So, you could split up, I'd say actually about 80% of what we do is where we just are very transactional. We're a retailer. We buy from brands, have relationships with 500. I would say about 20, and then 20% of these brands are actually more strategic, where we really work a lot harder on, probably more similar to a private label, where it's not our products, we don't own it, but we have, we're the authorized sellers. And so that means we do the marketing, we do, product page rollout, new products. And we've had a good track record of taking, these businesses from, say, $250,000 in sales. Say they come to us and they're they want to grow on Amazon, and we take them to about 2, 3, 4 million. That's something that we've done fairly often. It's where we see more of the growth of our business. And you're an entrepreneur yourself. When you figure something out, you want to move on to the next shiny thing and get that rolling. And so, and when I say figured out, I mean that you have all the tech in place, you have the systems, things are sort of an autopilot. And once you get to that, I would say, any entrepreneur or even human being wants to create what's next. And so clearly on Amazon, bringing new products that meet a market fit is doing really well right now.
Yeah, continually adding new SKUs, new products is really important, whether you've got multiple brands, something like 200 that you manage, or you're a single owner operator and you just need to add new SKUs. But Scott, one of the challenges most people have is the tech behind doing that properly so that they can work a little bit less and not do things so manually. I've talked to thousands of entrepreneurs over the last 8 years in the role that I'm in. And I find that they've got the heart, they've got the desire, they've got the focus and drive, but sometimes slowing down to learn the tech side of the business to make the business operate more efficiently is a challenge. And that's an area where your background is all tech. You build it, you improve it more than anything else. Can you, what are your like top few things that you want to talk about in regards to tech that will help an Amazon?
Sure. I mean, everything from like what data is available out there. I could rattle off 4 APIs that, any developer, within, a few days can like start pulling interesting data off. There's
why don't you tell us what API stands for? Because I know.
Sure. Yeah. It's an application programmer interface. Okay. When you hear API, just think that like, it's a data connection between, the data provider, say Amazon, and, a software developer. Okay. So like sellers, generally, many of them actually do some of their own software development, and they can start downloading, their own data. And so API is that connection.
So it allows you to pull data from Amazon that they allow you to pull, but it's not just as simple as the information that's there inside of your seller account and the reports that you're accessing. Goes much deeper than that?
I'd say there's a few different APIs out there, and they have different purposes to them. And specifically Amazon, they don't give all the data that they have access to.
Right.
Everyone knows about like the business report that's on, they don't have that in the API. That one has like, your sessions data and your buy box percentage. That's not available in the MWS, the Marketplace Web Services API, and that's by design. I've heard Amazon engineers tell me that like they didn't want to give this data out in a programmatic way. Obviously that's a long conversation of like, but me as a developer, I always want more data. Whatever you can give me, like people can build tools off of that. And the truth is you take your Helium 10s and Jungle Scouts and like whatever other businesses, and some of them are actually sourcing their own data. They're not using this from Amazon's, their API. Mm-hmm. They may be scraping it themselves. And that's actually kind of a gray area where like Amazon doesn't want them to do it. But like, on the other hand, it is publicly available. You could teach any robot to go scrape these. And so I've heard mixed opinions on these, even so much. I heard an Amazon employee said that you shouldn't be using Jungle Scout, but I think it's kind of.
Do you use, I'm sorry to interrupt, the software like Jungle Scout and Helium 10?
I use Helium 10. There's a few things that they do pretty well, and it kind of, reinforces insights. Okay. I would say I don't have to use them. I think specifically private label, your insights can actually be more valuable than, what a tool tells you. There's private label sellers that like are killing it. They don't use tools. I think I've been a victim of that, where like, I'm always looking, I hear something, I'm like, okay, how can I incorporate that into my tools? How can I grab this as data? When that might be a distraction from, what actually is going to lead to a product success. Grabbing all this data doesn't make your photography better. It doesn't make your, there's certain aspects that I think you should really rely on your own hunch as a marketer, as like understanding, a subcategory. So, as someone that has downloaded, thousands of gigabytes of data from Amazon, I'm telling you, like, don't live off of data alone. Don't be obsessed with it. But there are, back to the point of like, what APIs are out there, like that can help people build interesting tools. Yeah, there's Amazon's MWS Keepa actually has a API. It's actually very expensive. We pay them $2,000 a month for
Wow.
access. You can dial that down. I mean, I'm downloading, almost the entire catalog of Amazon every month
Wow.
from them, and then so they charge us that. Then there is the advertising API, which is separate, which gives all the very specific advertising data. And then finally, there's actually one called the product advertising API that is for affiliates, Amazon affiliates. And that one actually has more interesting data, such as like very specific reviews on a product and, the offers. They actually, Amazon on their API to sellers doesn't give seller specific data like the offer, the value of all of them. I mean, I could talk about this. I'm already in the weeds, but
How does a mom and pop seller that could be doing 2 or 3 million in revenue access some of these APIs that you're talking about, other than Keepa, which is just a
okay. Well, I'm happy to tell you that in 2020, it is different than it was 5 years ago.
Okay.
People have built amazing tools, and that it took me years to like reconcile that. Like, I'm not going to build everything. I'm not going to build the best advertiser, and that like you can rent other people's tools very easily. So I would, mom and pop that's doing 2 to 3 million a year, like, like that's awesome. Like you probably should think first about like renting what's out there and getting really good with them before, building your own. That's not going to be true for everyone. It depends on your type of business. But if you've got, say, 2 SKUs and you're doing that significant volume, then you probably don't need, certain tools that like work for bigger catalogs.
Right.
But there are over like 100, SaaS tools that focus on the Amazon, community. I would say just like find out the best ones that work for your business and really implement them, because using tools is what's going to help your business scale. And, how are you going to replace yourself so you're not like the linchpin of a business?
I think that's critical.
Yeah.
Using the tools to scale your business. So you can then focus on the other things that you do really well, which might be new product launches and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Is there a specific tool out there for inventory management? It seems to be the biggest challenge. And some people just say, I tried them all. I'm using a Google sheet now. And they do their own, projections and numbers and guessing of that nature. What do you do?
Yeah. I don't have a solid answer to this because I've seen like 10 different tools. We built our own.
Okay.
It's using a SQL database, and which allows us to do certain things, synchronize in certain ways and operate on it. But Google Sheets, this does get more complicated if you are dealing with, overseas inventory. I was with someone just a week ago, and he uses Airtables, which is probably like kind of Google Sheets, but a little bit more configurable. And he's able to like, show inventory dripping across, his entire supply chain. And I know like there's the likes of Skubana, which are probably, one of the more expensive, but like really, really feature rich. I don't know if they have this overseas component, this like inbound inventory that you would really want to be able to forecast and know exactly what's happening at all times.
I think that's why some people go to the Google Sheets, because they can put some guessements in there. It's a challenge. I was hoping you'd have a perfect answer for me, but it's a situation that everybody.
I'll let you know. If I find one that I think is like an all-in-one, I will not be quiet about it.
Well, please, thank you. We'll see if that comes. Maybe you can just sell the one that you've built. Have you ever thought about doing that? Is just creating the SaaS?
I do have 5 to 10 sellers that use it. It's far from like ideal for everyone. And I've considered it, but like I don't know if it scales very well. It's like, we have a huge catalog And so every decision I'm making, it's all about like, okay, this supplier, we have 500 products with them. How do we manage these 500 in a systemized way? And so it's around that. Is it really to the minute or to the unit with the different stages of inbound, say from China to your 3PL? It doesn't actually have that built in. So it's not a deal killer. I'd love to build that, but shoot.
What are your predictions and challenges in Q4 2020 with inventory, given new restrictions on Amazon and how much you can ship into the fulfillment centers?
It's a good question. So challenges. I mean, like I've just come to terms with what it is that, you have to have with if you don't have current sell through on products that can allow you to like ship in a ton of things, we're using our FBM alternative where we have both offers inside. I don't love that, but like we've got skilled with it. We got even more skilled with it during, peak quarantine when, we couldn't send in everything. So, by this time we have some experience with this. I definitely think that people should have a FBM or a 3PL, option.
That's something we've learned, I think, in 2020, that if we had the same conversation in 2019, I don't think people would, what do I need to fulfill myself? Other than maybe kitting and packaging and keeping down your inventory storage costs. But now the reality is that, they've only got so many fulfillment centers. They can only put so many products in there, and, revenue at Amazon has increased, multiple times over since COVID hit. So, okay. So get your 3PL in place, fulfilled by merchant, get it up, and if you can do it at this point for Q4, at least you'd be able to protect yourself in the future. One thing that is in your bio on your LinkedIn page is interesting. I mean, a lot of it pretty damn impressive, but the Amazon refunds management that is touched upon there, it's something that inside and out. And I think a lot of people just accept that Amazon's either doing the right thing or screwing up, and you can't figure out how much they're screwing up. But is there a lot of money for owners to get refunds back? Talk to us about this a little bit in terms of
Well, I could talk about this for quite a lot. I built a company and ended up selling it that does just this, and which is good because like now I'm not biased anymore. I don't have like a company to shill. So there is a lot of money on the table. And it actually may vary on your product type, your SKU count. We found that Amazon is more careful with more expensive products. We found that products that are under $25 and say a low number count where say you're only sending in, 30 units, 50 units, 100 units, that's more likely to, have units damaged and lost than if you're sending in, 500. It just seems that that was our study that showed that my company, when we turned on, these tools to request for reimbursements and find the Amazon's gaps, we got about $200,000 in the course of 2 months back from Amazon.
Wow.
They make a lot of mistakes, and they are improving on this. I think the refunds opportunity isn't as much as it used to be, but it's free money. And I generally have found that up to 1% of your revenue is just sitting there. And
it's there. You just have to learn how to ask for it back, or what do you mean?
You had to learn how to ask for it and actually look for it. So we built a programmatic approach to this. There's a few companies that, they're doing this through spreadsheets and finding this, but so the company that I sold is called Valence. They sold to a company called Veriship, and now Veriship markets this tool, and they, they're looking at all the dimensions and weights of their products that you sold, and say Amazon changes that, and the FBA fee is now less than what it used to be, or maybe more than what it used to be. If there's an opportunity, you could actually create a case with Amazon and say hey, you overcharged us for this duration of time. And I've seen reimbursements of up to, $2,000 to $5,000. It's not incredibly uncommon. We get like one of those a month. I've seen as high as $15,000. That's just for the FBA fee. There's also the damaged and missing.
They're overcharging just the FBA fee?
Yeah.
I see. I thought this was just for damaged and lost inventory.
So they remeasure your products semi-regularly, depending on I don't actually know the how often they do it, but it's not uncommon for them to remeasure it, and something happens and it changes. Or maybe even you change your packaging and they are slow to, change the FBA fee along with that. And so if there's an opportunity, like the system requests it and that's like, that's the opportunity alone. There are, there's about, companies will tell you there's like 25 audit types. There's really about 6 that really get money for sellers. And it's if a product, say you have a return and there's a few return types that Amazon's supposed to cover certain parts of the fees, like the return shipping fee, or like you just have to look in the data, like if it's like, if it says like it's like shipper damaged it, or fulfillment center lost it, or damaged it, and they don't reimburse you for that, then you can request it.
Let me do some math for the people that are listening, just so you understand how important and how valuable what Scott just talked about is. Let's just say you're doing $3 million a year in revenue. Okay, we had a conversation like this on the team the other day. If that business is doing $500,000 in discretionary earnings, it's roughly 15%. What's it worth, right? It's probably, depending upon growth and defensibility and how many SKUs, if you could hero SKUs, things of this nature, you're probably, let's call it, in that 3.5 time multiple range these days. That doesn't include inventory. Add the inventory in and you're over 4 times. If Scott's 1% figure works out, you're at 3 million, so you get $30,000 in found money that goes to the bottom line, right? There's no product cost built in there. It goes to your discretionary earnings figure. Now you're selling that business for a 3.5 time multiple just by using a tool like Valence. Is that the name of the tool, Scott?
Yeah, it's now called Veriship.
Veriship. Just by using a tool like Veriship, you're adding 30,000 times 3.5, so $105,000 to the list price of your business. Now, Veriship costs $100 a month, a few $100 a month. Do they get a percentage of the revenue that they get back?
They do a gain share model, and it's about 20 to 25%.
Oh my goodness!
There are
numbers.
Totally worth it. There are. I mean, I'll just be totally transparent. There's other companies that do it. Some that may do it for cheaper. There's virtual assistants that like advertise, "I do this for you." So you have a few different options. Some of them may be a little bit less expensive, but at the very least, like you just do it. When we first found this, we actually used someone else's tool, and within 2 weeks, it was like $4,000 or $5,000, and that's when we started okay, there's more to this, and
found money, people. If you're struggling to keep up with, purchasing more inventory, if your business is 24 months old and you haven't taken any out of it yet, which is often the case, we know that you're going to make the most when you exit if you've got a young Amazon business. But this can put some extra money back in your pocket going into the fourth quarter here. Be able to buy yourself something, or just, get a more profitable business that'll be worth more money at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Scott, do you talk about this and all sorts of other things on your, you've got a new YouTube channel and on your podcast as well?
Yeah. I've really lasered in on just the operating, all the tools that are when I say tools, I mean all the features of Amazon, and from advertising to the here's an example is the on-site associates program, where I brought in a guy that like, he does a bunch of like, he works with like review sites to bring in those reviews on Amazon. Like if you search, dog leash right now, you'll see like a bunch of organic listings, and then there'll be like reviews from these other sites that they bring in on the page, and he helps people get those placements. I just like nerding out about very operational, specific things on Amazon. I'm going to talk way too long about them, but at the end of the day, like a good episode or, YouTube video or whatever, it's like an Amazon seller can leave and like make their business better. Like they get an idea to like how to execute that.
And we've tried to jam in several topics here in our 25 to 30 conversations. So thanks for hanging in there with me. But I think that the nerding out is critically important, right? People have invested so much time and energy and money in building their own business, and I think the two things they don't do enough of is nerding out on the tech side. And that's what you do very, very well, because you've just given an example of how to get 1% of your revenue back. And I gave the example of what that can do to the overall value of their business.
Yeah.
So, nerding out on the tech side, smartest Amazon seller podcast, folks, please do it. We talk about it, a lot of things in detail here, but we cover broader things and get experts in like Scott to focus in on them in detail. But go to his podcast and listen. I watched one of your YouTube videos that talked about, again, we could go off on a tangent here, but talked about the brands and how to get your brand showing up in a wider space all across the Amazon page and on mobile. I can't even tell you what it is, but it was so impressive. And you visually showed what the search looked like and how that particular brand showed up all across the entire page and took up 2 or 3 times the space on mobile than other brands, which was really, really impressive. And as you said on that video, it was like, which one would you click on? It's the bigger, more impressive one that's got some great video in it as well. And you even talked about the tool that you shot the video with, which took you about 4 minutes just by dropping images in and dropping some content in. I can't remember what the name of it was. Do you remember? I'm going to call you out on this. Do you remember the name of the tool?
Well, let's see. Is that Loom? That's what I used to record.
It was something else. All right. That's a good reason for people to go to the YouTube channel. And is the YouTube channel the smartest Amazon seller podcast as well? What's the name of the YouTube channel?
Just smartest Amazon seller.
Great. All right, folks, definitely go and listen to it. He's got expertise. He's 300 million in transactions, really heavy on the tech side. It's an area where so many of us need to get better, Quiet Life Brokerage included. Can't say you need to get better without telling the truth, which is we need to get better as well. Scott, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for having me.